Hi, Randy, K7AGE, out here in my garage studio. Not very fancy, but I'm out here because I pulled in one end of the group of cables, and I'm going to be crimping on the DX Engineering PL259 connectors. And what I've decided, I'm going to pull the cable from the ham shack end out to the tower end. The conduit coming out of the tower is lower, and it may make it easier to pull out than trying to pull it out at a higher spot. So the connectors I'm putting on will end up in the box outside of the ham shack wall. And just let you know that DX Engineering did supply me with the Coax, all the prep and crimping tools, and lots of their PL259 connectors, so I can show you how these are used. So looking forward to it. I've never used these tools or these connectors before, so we'll kind of learn together. So getting ready for this video, I've looked over instruction manuals, and we'll go through these here quickly. I've also gone onto YouTube and did a search on DX Engineering, crimping connectors and cable prep, and found several of their videos, so I've watched those, so I have a little bit of an idea here of the procedure. So we'll show you how to do that, and hopefully the close-ups and stuff will work here. So let's take a look at the tools that I have. Let's start quickly looking at the DX Engineering coaxial cable preparation tools for the crimp connectors. Opening up the manual, this page here has an introduction, some general information. They list here what the tools are, because you can buy these individually. So this is what's in the set. There's a warning here, watch out for the sharp blades, don't cut yourself. And then it lists everything that's in the kit here. So the next page in the manual here is this table, and it shows the 4 types of stripping tools that are in the kit and for what cable and what connectors they are for. So the red here is for, I'm going to say, the larger diameter cable, which would work with their DX Engineering DXE 400 Max. You could also use this with 11U, 8U, LMR 400, any of the larger cables. So this would be the tool to do the stripping for the PL259s. The green stripping tool is used for the smaller diameter cable. So like the DX Engineering 8X, the LMR 240, RG 8X, and some of these smaller cables. And these are spring-loaded, and they have the blades inside here. So there's one set for stripping, another set for opening up the insulation to pull it off. The orange is again for the large diameter coaxes, but used for an end connector. And the green is for smaller diameter cables for either an end type connector or a B&C crimp connector. So the other 2 tools that are in the kit are the cable grabbers. So what these things do is just spring-loaded, clamp around, and gives you a good grip on the cable, because we're going to be doing a lot of twisting and pulling, and if you're trying to hold the cable just with your hand, you might be able to do it for a couple connectors, but it would be real tiring. So this will fit down over here and give you a good handle to grab on to the cable, because we're going to be doing a lot of work on this side. So it may seem kind of trivial, but I'm sure after you do a whole bunch of connectors, your hand will appreciate that. So I talk about a large number of connectors. Let's just take a little review of how many here I'm going to be working on. I have 6 cables going from the ham shack out to the tower. So that's a connector on each end, that's 12. I'm going to have cables going up the tower. If I have all 6 there, there's another 12, so that's 24. And then I have to go from the junction box at the outside of the ham shack inside, so there's more cables. If I have all 6, there's another 12 connectors. So we're talking 36 connectors here if I put all the connectors on everything at this point. So this should make this a lot easier and quicker. And the other tools that are in the kit are these nice pair of cable cutters. And then here's also this little area here in the center, and this is used to squeeze on the cable to make it round. We'll see that as we go along. Nice pair of braid cutters to trim the braid. And a little plastic box here with 10 extra blades. You don't want dull blades for doing this. And in the crimping kit, of course, well, just going to show you quickly, we got duplicates now of the cable cutting and braid cutting tools, trimming tools. So this is a ratcheting tool, and with these are nice, you got to squeeze it all the way down. This does have a little finger here. You can push if you get jammed up to take and release the tool. You can see at the moment there's not any jaws installed, and there's different jaws here. This bag is for the red, yellow, blue insulated terminal connectors. This set of dies is for the terminal connectors, but the uninsulated. This would be nice now to do the spade lugs and stuff for the rotor cables and things. Here's a die set for power pole connectors for 15, 30, and 45 amp connectors. So, you know, if you're doing a lot of power pole work, if you buy one of these, it'll save you from having to buy a power pole only crimper tool for that. Here's a die set for the 8X, smaller diameter cable, and another die set for the RG8U, the LMR 400, and the DX Engineering 400 Max cable. And the manual has a lot of data in here about the different die sets, all the various connectors that they can be used for. You know, here's the spade lugs, power poles, things like that. More about the dies for the Coax cables, for PL259s, end connectors, and BNCs. How to install the dies into the tool, and then the actual crimping. So I think the first thing I need to do is install the dies. And I found one more tool, a little Allen key, because it uses Allen screws here on the die. So looks like I just take these two out and put these in. Okay, so what they say to do is just loosely put the jaws in the tool and close it down. And there's a little pin back here. I don't know if it's going to show up in the video, but you want to make sure that gets aligned, and close it down, and then tighten up the screws here. Looks like laser etched DX Engineering on there. Okay, so I think we're ready to get started. So, quick peek in the book here, the manual. It says basically, I'm going to put the gripper on, the stripper on, with the end with the 3 blades towards the cable, and then turn it around, and it makes 3 cuts. So, let me get this out of the way, and I'm going to put the gripper on, and we open this up. I got to be careful with my fingers here, and I don't know if you can see it here, but here's the 3 blades here that are going to cut, and there's a stop in here. That's where you put the end of the cable. Oops, I forgot a step. You should cut the end off of the cable square and clean. So this is actually pretty square, but I'll just trim it up here a little bit, just with the cutters here, and get it on there nice and square as possible. And cut that, and then you can use the little I don't know what you want to call these here in the middle, but the cable is a little out of round shape, so I can use the squeezer things here and just kind of squeeze the cable and get it back to round, make it better for the stripping. So you just kind of push that around a little bit. Okay, now we're ready for this. Open this up and slide the cable. Get it open here. Slide the cable in here against this stop and close it down and squeeze it. And I'm going to slide this up and get a good hold on it here and start twisting this. I can hear it cutting. And go around. And I can feel it just kind of turning loosely now. And I open this up, take this out. I don't know if you can see that, but we have the 3 cuts here. That one looks like it didn't cut all the way. Let's try that a little more in there. And make sure I squeeze it on the end here. Go around a few times. Yeah, I can hear that cutting. The next thing you do is take the other end, where it's got a straight blade here. So you put that down on here and squeeze down. What we're going to do now is slit the cable lengthwise and just pull it. And it's actually taken off a couple of the pieces there. So I pulled that off. It happened, to pull the first 2 cuts out, and I can then unwrap this 3rd one here from around. So there we are. Well, I wasn't quite following the instructions. It'd take a few times to get this right. I should have left this kept this last bit on here, because what they say to do is use the trimmers here and trim back the braid to that point. So I'll do that as best I can here. Just go around here and trim the braid. I can take this off because I can tell where the braid here is mostly cut. So I use an X-Acto knife here to cut the foil, and now I can just peel that off going around here. And now with the foil gone, I'll just make sure I got all the braid trimmed up. So this is the DX Engineering Crimp PL259 connector. It has the ferrule here, and this will slide down over the coax and crimp over the braid. So I think you can maybe do this without taking the body off, but I'm going to do that here just so we can see things maybe a little bit better. You don't want to forget to put this on the cable. Okay, I have the barrel on the right side of the connector. I've double checked the trimming of the braid, make sure it's clean. With an LM400 style cable, where the shield is bonded to the center insulator here, you take the cutters and you go around the edge at about a 45-degree angle and to cut those off smoothly. So the next thing we do is you slide the ferrule down over the cable, and then we take the connector, it slides down over, and we got to make sure the center connector is coming through the center of the pin there, and it goes down underneath the braid. There we go. We push it down. So it's down underneath the braid, and it basically bottoms out against the outer insulation here. Then slide the ferrule up over that, and basically put the tool right down close and make sure the ferrule is up against the edge of the connector, and squeeze. It's going to take 2 hands. A little more. There it goes. That opens up. Okay, so that's on there. That's good and tight. I can take this off. And then we screw back on the connector, or the barrel. So now what's left to do is get in here with a soldering iron and solder the center pin. Okay, I've got the cable mounted in my little vise here to hold it while I solder. I'm going to use my good old soldering gun here. And when you're doing this, you basically want to heat up the outside of the pin and feed the solder in through the opening here, and when it melts it will flow down inside there. So I'm just going to put that on there. This takes a fair amount of heat, so you're not going to do this with your little bench iron. I can see it starting to melt on the pin, oops, but not on the wire yet. So just give it time and hold steady. And you feed a little solder in there. There it goes. And I can see the solder has flowed around there. Maybe not quite there on the bottom, so I'm going to get a little more here. Now we let that cool. We don't want to touch it. We want to have that set up properly. And if you do get any solder on the outside, I just take a little knife here and just kind of scrape that off. You'll be okay. So that was my first connector. So it'll take a few times to get into the routine, knowing all the steps in the most efficient order. This took a lot longer, doing the first one. I still think it's quicker and faster than soldering, especially soldering the braid around the inside of a PL259. It requires a lot of heat. You really want to have a good connector so it doesn't melt the center pin and move that around. You don't want to melt the insulation on the inside. So, I mean, this is, that's pretty strong. So, I've got 5 more to do. So I'm going to do 4 more and then come back and show you doing the 6th one. So, should go a lot quicker. And yes, I think it's going to be better than soldering. Even though you got to solder the tip, that's pretty easy to do. So I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, so I've done 4 more since that first one, and I've learned a few tricks. So let's go ahead and put the 6th cable on here. I got the purple Coax, the Bob Heil Coax here. So first I'm going to trim up the end here, just square it up. If I pause here, it's usually because I'm trying to position things for the camera. So I'm going to square that up and then take the pinchers. Okay, I think we can see that. Take the pinchers and just squeeze the coax back round. Okay, I like to take the barrel off the connector, and I'll show you why here in a couple steps. So unscrew it from the way it's going to go on the cable and slide this down over. Don't need the connector now. Now we're going to strip it. So put the grabber on, and the trick I learned here is that there's a little bit of a bevel here, so you don't have to try and open this up and stuff. You can just push it on there and it goes right in. On the stripper, the trick I've learned is that it's probably hard to see, but it has a DX Engineering logo on here. So I know when I hold this so I can read it, the 3 cutting tools are on this side and the lengthwise stripping is on that side. Again, I can just press that, and since I've done this a few times, I now know the blades are in the bottom. So when I press that in there, I can just kind of open it up and look and feel and get the edge of the coax up against the stop in there. And I like to get this back up close, and then I just start twisting and cutting and squeezing it tight. Keep it tight. You can back up and go around. It won't hurt to overdo it because it only goes so far. Then open it up, flip this around, push, line the end of the coax on the end there. Now this you really have to, I didn't grab it hard enough. This you really have to grab and pull. There we go. There's the bits out of there. And I got a fair amount of braid here that didn't come off this time. grippers are nice because when you're trying to twist the cable, you can get enough grab here to twist. So now I'm going to get in here and cut these last little bits of braid off. The last couple I've done, it's cut all the braid wires completely off. I haven't had to trim any. I might not have the angles right here for what I want. Next thing I do is take an X-Acto knife. I kind of slit down the foil here and peel that off. And now I can see that there's no braid there. And the last thing is to pull this last piece of insulation off. Just unwrap that around there. There we go. Take the ferrule and slide this down a little bit. Give me a little more room. Slide this down over everything. Make sure the center is twisted and straight. Slide the connector down. It goes underneath the braid and pull the ferrule back up over the braid. Now this is where you got to be a little careful when you get in here with the crimping tool, because you're applying pressure and moving things around. And what you don't want to have happen here is that this to slide like that, because you may not be able to see it, or you don't want the ferrule to separate back. So you want to make sure this is fully seated and this is up against there and nothing move now. So you got to keep an eye on this. Get in here very gently, start to grab, make sure it's where you want it. If you, oops, there it slid, that's not good. Now the tool is locked here, so I can push this little pin here and it opens up. This is what you want to watch out for. This doesn't slide around. This is easier to do when I'm not having to try and get the camera over my shoulder. Get this on. I can tell it came down a little bit. Push that back with my finger. Slide the ferrule up with the tool. This goes easier when I'm not trying to show you how to do it. Okay, oop. Push that down, this up. Got the crimp tool. Get on there. Don't move, don't move. Ah, it moved. Okay. I can push that up with my finger, push down on the connector, and get some pressure on there, and crimp it down. And there we go. There's the barrel. So that didn't go as smoothly as I wanted to show you, because I'm not on it square where I can see and stuff and trying to do it off to the side. But you get the idea, and that's what you want to watch out here for, is to make sure that the connector is fully seated down and the ferrule is fully seated up. And you get done, the center should be just a little bit back from the very end of the cable. Okay, time to solder the cable here. I went back inside and got some 050 solder. The other stuff I had was too thin. I just had to push too much of it in there all the time, or too long of it. So again, heat up the outside of the pin and hold it down a little bit from the end. And it'll take a bit to get the center conductor to take solder. There it is. Oops, it slipped off. Get my hand out of the way. There we go. That should do. So that wraps it up. I got 6 connectors on the end of 6 cables, and I find this a lot easier and quicker than soldering. So I want to say thanks to DX Engineering for supplying me the cable, the connectors, and the tools. I'm now a crimper convert, and I'll probably be ordering some more bags of connectors and probably some BNCs and probably a few ends, because you never know. And you know, if you ever put out a BNC with the nut and the washers and all that stuff, it's kind of a pain. So a quick crimp would make that real nice. So what's next? Pulling the cable through the conduit, and I've ordered up my slime to make that easier. And then I got to build the beam and get all that on the tower. So again, DX Engineering, thank you. This is Randy, K7AGE. If you like this, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at K7AGE.